Well, hello ninthers and welcome. Well, namaskar, swagatam to a new episode of, not episode of KBC, but then of History for Standard Ninth. And, it may be or it must be a change of scene for you all in this history segment because it was being well, whatever it is, I guess this I'll be able to fill in the boots of the person I'm uh, replacing over here in this history section. And before that, I just want to ask you all that if you did have any problem regarding any of the previous video lectures, and if you will be having any problem with this lecture or the upcoming lectures, please mention them or please write it down in the comment section so that I can get back to you in the upcoming lectures. I'm hoping you all are doing well, you all are doing fine, and well, I'm also doing well, I'm doing fine, and let us just move on. In the previous chapters, I guess you all have done about a lot about the Mauryans and the Aryans. And most of while we talk of the Mauryan Empire, the Aryans, the early Vedic age, the Jainism, the Buddhism, we are mostly talking about the northern parts of India. And with northern parts of India, I'm talking of those parts of India which are primarily belonging to the Aryan lineage or which are belonging to the Aryan group. But what about the other part? The other part, the most important other part which we did not deal about previously is the Dravidian is the Dravidian people or the Dravidian areas. What is the Dravidian area or the Dravidian people, or who are the Dravidian people? When we are talking of the Dravidians, we are talking of the area which were settled by those people, by the Dravidians, and those areas are nothing but the peninsular part of India, which comprises of modern day Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, Karnataka. You have Tamil Nadu and Kerala. So these areas were home to the Dravidians. Who were the Dravidians? The Dravidians, when we talk of the Dravidians, India was mainly during or before the Aryans came to India. India, the Dravidians were already there in India, and the Dravidians belong to the southern part of India. They had their own distinct language, their own distinct culture, and their own distinct script, the writing script. The most of the Indian languages which we have today, they are derived from two main scripts. The first script is the Sanskrit script, and the other main script is the Dravidian script. The languages which you all know about, Malayalam, you have Kannada, you have Tamil, you have Telugu. All these languages are derived from the Dravidian script. Now, when we are talking of the Dravidian script, the Dravidian culture, the Dravidian people, now they had a very distinct culture, different from that of the Aryans. Yes, they gradually imbibed a lot of Aryan traditions, a lot of Aryan gods and goddesses, but then the Dravidian people did maintain some sort of a gap between. There was not a complete infusion of the Aryan culture and the Dravidian culture, the Aryan language and the Dravidian language, and that is why there was a lot of difference between the Aryans and the Dravidians. The Dravidians were proud of their uniqueness, their unique script, their unique language, and that is why they did not allow the Aryan script, the Aryan language, the Aryan ways and customs, and the Aryan way of life to take over the Dravidian way of life and the Dravidian culture and the Dravidian custom. When we talk of history, we are actually talking of what actually is history and why are we studying history. Now today, the many of us may start questioning why do we study history. I will just say that the most important reason why we study history is so as to know why we are here and what brought us to any present or to this present situation. When we talk of the, let us take an example, the coronavirus, the COVID-19. Now, when we are talking of the COVID-19, it becomes very important to know how it started. And when we are talking of how it started, from where it started, how it started spreading, so we are talking of its history. So, if we know the history of that coronavirus, if we know the history of how the virus started spreading, how the virus started moving, what were the factors that resulted in the virus in spreading to different areas, only then will we understand why we are in this present situation, why we are having this virus outbreak, and what is to be done in the future. That will also depend on what we learn about the history of this virus. Same thing, or similarly, it is very important to know about human history also, because the problems which are facing us as a humankind to this day, the present situation which we are in, and the future which we'll be moving to, the problems which we are having today, all of them have some kind of a linkage with the history, with the past. And so as to understand the problems which are there now, the situations which are there now, we need to study about history. So history has, most importantly, two sources. When we talk of the sources of history, or there is two histories we talk of. One is the history which we have written sources, and the other is the prehistory. When we talk of the prehistory does not have any such written sources. So what do we, when we talk of the early men, the cavemen, so we do not have, they did not leave back any written history, historical accounts. They did not write any books, poems, novels. So we do not know much about them. We, whatever we know about prehistory is through excavations, is through different archaeological findings which we have got, and through maybe many other sources like burial sites, like the tools which they used to use, the pottery which they made. So those are the things which we require to study prehistory. And the other part, the history, what comprises of history is written sources. And when we are talking of written sources, there are and history also has not only written sources, the written sources, along with it there are the archaeological sources. Now there are two sources, most important sources. One is the archaeological sources, and the other is, or the primary sources and the secondary sources. What are the primary sources? The primary sources are those sources, or those things which actually belong to that age of, or that age of history which we are studying. Those are the primary sources. And what are the secondary sources? The secondary sources are the commentaries and the other historians' accounts which they have written. If suppose I am reading a book, and or this video which you will be watching, best example, this video which you will be watching is a secondary source on the Sangam age. And what will be my primary source? I also had to refer to some book. I also had to refer to some source. So those will be the primary sources. Now, primary sources, secondary sources. When we are talking of these primary sources, secondary sources, it will be clear to you with the upcoming chapters. I'll be talking of these primary sources and the secondary sources at length. Now, when we are talking of this Sangam age, and before that, before the Sangam age, there was the megalithic stage. What is the megalith, or what is a megalith actually? Let us forget about megalith right now. While I was talking about prehistory, I said that we come to know about the situation of the people by looking at the different, because they did not leave back, people of prehistory did not leave back any written script. So we understand their life, their that part of history through the different excavations, the different burial sites, then the different archaeological remains which are left behind. So when we are talking of burial sites, we are talking of, if we are talking of the Aryan burial sites, if we are talking of the Dravidian burial sites are actually a very important source of historical information. Burial sites, even the pharaohs, the pyramids which you see, the pyramids are nothing but burial sites. And those pyramids, when they were opened, it was found out, or those pyramids, when they were opened, we found out, or historians found out, archaeologists found out that there were so many different kinds of utensils kept over there, so many different types of grains kept over there, so many different kinds of ornaments kept over there, so many different metals, so many different arms and ammunitions kept over there. So all these things tell us about the life of the people. And why were so many things kept with the dead person? Because it was believed, most of the earlier societies, they used to believe in life after death. So they used to, whenever they used to bury a person or a dead person, they used to put all those things which he may be requiring in the next life along with that person in the burial site. So this burial site is very important to know about the Dravidian history also. When we study the Dravidian history, the first or before the Sangam age, there was the megalithic age. What are megaliths actually? Mega, as you all know, the word mega stands for something which is big, and lith stands for stone or earth. So those burial sites which had, or there was a very characteristic feature of the burial sites of southern India or the Dravidian people. They had the burial sites had huge round stones which used to be placed over the burial site or the place where the body was buried, and above it a huge round stone. And mostly the stone was made up of a single rock. So a single huge rock stone, it used to be placed over there. And that is why the name has come, megalith. So these megalithic structures, these megaliths give us a lot of information about the people of, or about the Dravidian people and the people of the Deccan and the southern India before the Sangam age literature came. Now, in the book, if you read the book, you will be, or the book confuses between the Sangam age and the megalithic age. The book, if you read the book, or when you read the book, you'll be finding that the Sangam age and the megalithic age, they are generally mixed up together, but it is not so. First came the megalithic age, and after that the Sangam age came. During the megalithic age, the people of southern India, they were, or the people, the Dravidians were mainly there on the uplands and the plateau areas of South India. But after the megalithic age, they started moving towards the delta areas and the river plains of the most important rivers, the Krishna, Godavari, Kaveri. They started moving downwards towards the plainlands, and there started, or they came up with societies and kingdoms. And we'll be studying about these societies and kingdoms later on in the chapter in some other video about the Cholas, the Cheras, and the Pandyas. Now, when we are talking of the megalithic people or the megaliths, after the megaliths, or when the megaliths were found, it was found out that along with the body which was buried, a lot of utensils were kept. You had different kinds of equipments kept, and most of the equipments were hunting equipments, and a few equipments were also there which were agricultural equipments. So it shows that the people of the megalithic age of southern India, they were not having, or their primary occupation was hunting and food gathering and not agriculture. Agriculture had also started, but it was not that rampant, it had not increased as much as it was in northern India. One more thing to be kept in mind. Do not confuse, or do not think that when we talk of a Neolithic age, megalithic age, so all these ages came together, or all these ages were happening in the same time all throughout India. No. Some places of India had the megalithic age way before the other places had. Some places of India started having kingdoms long before the other places had. So when there were kingdoms already in northern India, southern India was still not having that kind of a kingdom or that kind of a civilized society or a condensed society. So not only in India, different parts of the world, civilization came, or different ages of history came to different parts of the world in different times. So when we are talking of, you may be wondering that while northern India was already having the Janpads and the Mahajanpads, southern India over here was still there in the food gathering stage. Yes, they started having kingdoms much later, the southern part of India, than the northern part of India. So first came the megalithic age. Megalithic age ended around the 2nd to 1st century BCE, and after that came the Sangam age. And what do we, or how do we know about the Sangam age? That was through the Sangam age literature. But the megalithic age, the megalithic burial sites, they give us a lot of information about those people. It also tells us the different potteries, or the different types of potteries which were there. So when there are different types of potteries, it tells us the pictures, or drawn on the potteries, and the colors done over there tell us about the social life of the people and how people used to live, because those pictures most of the time they depicted the life of the people and the society of the people at those times, during those times. Then there were also food grains which were found in those burial sites, which tell us about the prevalence of agriculture. But mainly there were hunting instruments, or the hunting equipments, which tell us that it was more or less a hunter and food gatherer society than an agricultural society. But later on, after the this megalithic age, the people, they started moving. The megalithic burial sites can be most importantly found in southern parts of Andhra Pradesh and Tamil Nadu. And after that, these people started moving towards the coastal areas and the plain lands, and then started this Sangam age. And we'll be talking about the Sangam age in the next video. Now, till this part, if you did have any problem, please mention it in the comment section. I'm telling you all once again. And please, it feels good to have a large number of subscribers. So please subscribe. I guess I wouldn't have to tell that repeatedly to the ninthers. And please take care, stay well, and stay happy. Thank you.